So there was a little bit of actually big NFL news over the weekend that kind of came out of nowhere. So the New Orleans Saints, who obviously Kellen Moore is their head coach now, story came out, and it's kind of weird because it happened in the offseason. Like, this is like, it was almost reported as if it just happened, but I don't know how it happened in the offseason. Either way, Derek Carr, who stinks, but he's their quarterback.
Yes.
He has a shoulder injury, and he might be out for the whole season, or like a large part of it. He's hurt, right? So they're now in trouble starting quarterback-wise entering the season. Now, the Saints could draft a quarterback. They have the ninth pick in the draft. But Hugh, we have Tanner McKee here, who showed flashes last year in the game he started, and the game he came in and relieved Kenny Pickett, and a lot of people, including I know you, like Tanner McKee.
Future, called him the future.
Well, okay, so he could be the future something here. He's certainly the backup this season. But if I'm the Eagles, I'm calling the Saints, and I'm trying to take advantage of a situation that's bad. I mean, they have nobody. So I think Spencer Rattler's the only quarterback of note on their roster.
Spencer's been to a lot of schools.
He can't play either. So they need a quarterback. And Kellen Moore obviously has a relationship with Tanner McKee. If I'm the Eagles, I would call the Saints. And if they're willing to give me a day 2 pick, if they would give me their 3rd round pick, I would trade Tanner McKee to the Saints, and I would draft another quarterback in this draft to back up Jalen Hurts. Hugh, would you trade Tanner McKee to the Saints? Would you offer McKee to the Saints for, let's say, a day 2 pick, 3rd round pick, something like that? Where are you on that? Because I feel like that I could see why the Saints would be intrigued, but more there having worked with Tanner McKee for a season.
Okay, I'm a long talk for a minute because I feel that I have to in this situation in particular because there's some things that happen before I give my take that I have to, kind of let people understand where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Now, I know I messed up Cinco de Mayo, and I sound crazy. I know that was a crazy one. That sounded crazy.
It did dash your credibility for the day.
And I know that people are a little bit hot at me for they feel like I'm making excuses, but I'm not.
Company man, they're saying.
Yeah, they're saying company man. I'm not a company man. But when we talking about this, just listen to what I'm about to say now, because I got laughed at and ridiculed this morning. I would trade Tanner McKee for nothing less than a 1st round draft pick.
Like their number one
pick.
Their
number one pick. And let me tell you why.
How are you going to get that?
Okay, wait a minute. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. And this is maybe I'm crazy like a fox on this one, but this is why. Because Coach Goober had the possibility. Well, he was here all year long. He had the ability to see Tanner McKee every day at practice every day. He saw him every day. He knows what he has in his skill set. And on top of that, in that one sampling size, he came in and he played well. He knows this quarterback intimately. He knows his strengths and he knows his weaknesses. And if you're being honest, if he was in this draft now, he would probably be one of the top picks in the draft if he was in this draft with the skill set that he has. Wait a minute, before you jump all over me, Kyle, let me finish. Before you jump all over me, let me
letting you
finish.
go. I'm just giving you dirty looks.
No, yeah, because you about to say I'm crazy.
Well.
But I would, because I know this guy. I know him, and I know what he can do. And you don't have a whole lot anyway, and you could probably – I know you got to trade him and sign him, but it would probably be cheaper to sign him than it would be to get one of these quarterbacks that you have no clue what they're going to bring to the table.
Before I respond.
Kill him.
So I think part of the equation here. So, yeah, I misspoke this morning when we touched on this before the show. He has 2 years left on his contract at about $1 million a year. So that's a great contract for the Saints to acquire.
Yes.
But it's not quite like if they draft Shedeur Sanders with the 9th pick, they get him for 5 years pretty cheap. You know what I mean? Like this is just 2 years. Then they'd have to pay Tanner McKee within a year of trading for him. So I think that complicates what they would give up. But that's a lot to ask for a guy that played one game in the NFL. Like I know we like Tanner McKee because part of it is we're crazy and we get into the preseason and training camp and we react to his preseason stuff. He's played one game.
Yeah, I know, but he looked pretty
good.
good.
For a 1st round pick for one game.
I would because
a top 10 pick.
But this is a position of need.
I know.
And not only that, you know Tanner McKee. Coach Goober knows Tanner McKee, and he's had a chance. Like here's the thing that I look at when I think of the draft. You have a short period of time to watch film and get to know some of these young quarterbacks before you draft them. That's why when the Commodores were thinking about taking the quarterback that they took them all 3 on a golf outing. And then they made their decision. And they were lucky, and they looked like they made the right one in Jaden Daniels. You've had the opportunity to work with Tanner McKee a whole year. I had a chance to talk to Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee's a smart young man. And not only that, I asked him this question that we're talking about right now because it was all hypothetical back then, but it's crazy how things tend to work out. And I asked him, if you had an opportunity to go to New Orleans and be the starter, would you go? He didn't know. At the moment when I asked him the question, he didn't know because he likes being here in Philadelphia and all this other stuff. But this is a position of need for this team, and he's somewhat familiar with him. That's why I say if you want him, show me how bad you want him.
All right, so this would be, if Howie could pull this off, just put the stats you up right now, because that's incredible. Actually, the concept you're bringing up reminds me of when the Eagles traded A.J. Feely, when Andy traded A.J. to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up getting a high second-round pick for A.J. Feely, which is a steal, right? Like, A.J. just wasn't worth that. So I understand your lot. It just feels like a lot to ask. Like, I feel like if you ask them for a first-round pick, they're going to say no, and then there's no trade.
Hey, don't hurt to ask.
Well, I know. You could ask. I would do it for a third. Kyle, where do you come down? I mean, on the idea of, first of all, the concept. Would you trade McKee to the Saints for a day 2 pick?
So, I would be beaming if we got a third. I mean, I think Q's off his rocker with getting a first-round pick for Tanner McKee.
Crazy like a fox.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about him being as talented as some of these top quarterbacks in the draft is not true. I mean, he was a 6th-round pick, and there's a pretty good reason for that. Kellen Moore might like Tanner McKee, but he might like him as more of, what we had him here for, to be a project-type player, that you let him sit back and learn from somebody who's more talented, and he'd be a good backup for you if he needed to come in eventually. If you're Kellen Moore, and this is your first opportunity to be a head coach, why would you want to stake your job to somebody like Tanner McKee, who's been a backup his entire career, as opposed to getting somebody out of the draft who is younger, is more controllable, is cheaper, or, maybe cheaper for now, I guess I should say. But, he's your guy. You're Kellen Moore, you're saying, no, I want to hitch my wagon to somebody that I like out of this draft, as opposed to Tanner McKee, who he's known was, Tanner McKee was a 3rd stringer for the Eagles last year.
And a lot of people feel like he should have been a 2nd stringer.
But the Eagles do now because they've traded Pickett away.
But how many of those people think that he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL? That's a huge leap right there.
Some people call him the
Especially
future
for a
here.
first round value.
Here's the thing that I feel about quarterbacks. When who was it? Kevin Cobb was here. The Arizona Cardinals traded for him because they thought they had something in him. Unfortunately, it wasn't.
Wasn't he a 2nd-round talent, though?
He was a 2nd-round pick, and he had played more. He had gotten more run. Now, he didn't get a lot, but he got
but
that year he was named the starter, then he got hurt early.
This is what I believe when it comes to quarterbacks. It's all about you got to have some skill, no question about that. But it's all about the position that you're put in as well. Now, the reason why I say Kellen Moore might be a good fit is because he knows him. He knows his skill. He's more familiar with his skill set than he is with any other quarterback that's coming out in this draft.
But does he like his skill set enough to be a starting quarterback that he would want to hitch his wagon to?
If he likes him, if he's calling my phone, he likes him well enough to put him in that position. So why not ask for a first-round draft pick?
Well, because if you're the Saints, you're like, why on earth am I using a top 10 pick to go trade for somebody's backup right now?
Because
where you can easily get, if they called Howie, I guarantee you Howie would be willing to trade him for a 3rd. I think everybody in the league knows that. You're not going to get one over on Howie, or you're not going to give him a first-round pick.
That's what I'm saying. If you're calling my phone and you're talking about, because we're talking about him being the starter, right?
Well, they don't have much, so I think
that's what we're talking about, right?
Theoretically, he could start there.
So if you're calling if I'm Howie and the Saints are calling my phone, you're obviously calling because you think that he could be the starter for your team.
But when he says your 9th overall pick, they're hanging up that phone.
Listen, I'm asking. Because you're calling.
You can ask.
You're calling.
But there's any world in which
this is the thing that I think you're missing. If you're calling my phone, asking for Tanner McKee, he's probably going to be your starter. You might want to hedge your bets and draft a quarterback, but you're calling because he's probably going to be the starter. So I'm asking for the first pick.
I think it's insane.
I've been called insane before.
And here's the other thing. There was people in this town who have questions about how good Jalen Hurts is because of the roster that he plays with. Tanner McKee had one game with the best roster in the NFL.
And he played well.
I hear what you're saying, but like I said, again, if you're calling my phone and I'm a Howie, if I'm Howie and you're calling my phone, you're calling because you're inquiring about making him your starter because Derek Carr is not healthy.
So you're making them pay a tax because they're in a bad way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm taxing you.
So let's get on the record here. So you would not trade him for a 3rd-round pick because you want more.
I want more.
I would trade him for the Saints' 3rd-round pick right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat.
That's a pretty high pick in the 3rd round.
Absolutely.
I would do that right now, and then I would. I would draft a quarterback. The Eagles are in a position where Jalen Hurts reestablished himself this year, won Super Bowl MVP. Again, he wasn't great all regular season, but he was obviously good. And then what he did in the postseason, he's reestablished here. There's less doubt on Jalen Hurts. You could bring a young quarterback into the fold, develop him while Hurts is in his theoretical prime. That's what I would do. I like McKee. I'm not as McKee'd up as everybody else.
No,
I haven't been.
Q talked to the guy for 20 minutes
Well,
probably, and now all of a sudden he's McKee'd up.
He's the future.
Excuse me, only dude on this show to hit A-lay parlay, and I called this whole Taiwan Walker thing. So, I mean, who else is better to throw it out there than me?
A lot of
Are
people.
you the Tanner whisperer now?
I'm just saying, if you were shooting for the moon, then shoot for the moon. I mean, if you're calling my phone, I'm going to see how bad you want him. How bad do you want
But
him?
there's diving in the deep end without knowing how
It's
to
insane.
swim. Yeah,
I think we saw that the Eagles were lucky to have gotten a first-round pick for a former number 2 overall pick in Carson Wentz.
Still asking.
They're not getting it for Tanner McKee. They're just not, especially number 9.
Still asking.
I mean, I'm telling you, if Howie pulls it off, we put the statue up tomorrow. 215-592-9494.
If they get that for Tanner, you talk about I told you so, Douglas.
Well, you know what?
The good thing is I'm not worried about that because there's like zero world in which
We'll
this
have
happens.
a whole day
You
for
never know.
You
I
know
do
what?
know.
You could be assistant GM Douglas if you pull that off. Because I'll
I really
take it.
want to be the PR guy for the Sixers.
That's
though.
not working out for you, buddy.
It's
I mean,
not.
it's not.
If they get a first-round pick for Tanner, I'm shaving the mustache.
I mean, we could say any ridiculous thing because it's probably not going to
That's
happen.
right.
I would trade him. Would you trade Tanner for the Saints' third-round pick? I
You
would.
think you get a second for him? Take that same bet for a second?
I think he'd be lucky to get a second. I think he might be lucky to get a third, to be honest with you.
You know what you could do? You could say we'll take the 2025 second or 2026 second and kind of hope they're terrible because then that becomes almost like an early
first round,
like a late
draft
first,
pick,
early second next year. Because that was as I look back to the A.J. Feely, the Eagles traded him at the end of 03, like before the 04 season, for a 2025 second-round Dolphins pick. And that pick turned out to be like the third pick in the second round, a year later. So you could do something like that. 215-592-9494. We'll throw that in the mix as well. The Phillies, Rob Thompson, are you beginning to second-guess the Phillies manager? I am. I just feel like every move he's tried this year, it's not working out so far. And last night was an opportunity to spark the team, to send a message, to show some energy. I think most of us would have lost our mind on that umpire. And they panned that camera to Rob Thompson, and it was crickets. I mean, he was not. I thought he froze. I mean, he didn't move last night.
Yeah, he was in a daze.
He was in a daze. That's not where I want my manager to be. 215-592-9494. That is how you hop aboard. Your phone calls coming up. We do have the 4-pack of tickets. The sold-out Eagles 2025 Draft Party at Lincoln Financial Field, presented by Lincoln Financial Group. On the other side, your calls on McKee. Would you trade him to the Saints for a third rounder? What do you think of Hughes' idea to ask them for a number 1, the number 9 overall pick?